Welcome to Cybersecurity Refined and Feral, where refinement meets chaos in the digital world. We invite you to join your co-hosts Candy Alexander and Kaylin Sullivan in another open conversation on topics related to cybersecurity.
Welcome everybody to Cybersecurity Refined and Feral. I'm Kaylin Sullivan.
And I'm Candy Alexander. I'm so glad that you're here with us. With so much happening in our world, we thought we would add in a bonus episode to our ongoing lineup. And in this episode, we're hoping to cover some of the more interesting topics and events that have happened in the past month. There's certainly enough of that going on. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in. Kaylin, I know that you've been following that TikTok ban or not to ban story. Shall we start there?
Sure. Yeah, I'm very conflicted on this. I've been following some of it. I kind of support it, but at the same time don't necessarily like the fact that the US is targeting a specific company in legislation. They specifically call out ByteDance, not like, general companies. In the text itself, it does say like whoever, whatever company is could potentially be a threat of foreign interference or whatever. But they specifically call out ByteDance.
So let's just review what we're even talking about, right? Because, I mean, we know what we're talking about, like in the big timeline of the TikTok discussion. And it's been an ongoing discussion for some time. Of recent past, President Biden had, vowed to ban it from here in the U.S., gave the company ultimatums to sell it. So that it would be either U.S. based or majority owned. There have been numerous countries around the world that have taken the step to ban TikTok as a social media platform within their boundaries, if you will. The U.S. federal government and the agencies are banned from using it on those devices. So of late, again, with President Trump coming into office, he, which I thought was really interesting, put a hold or a pause on that ban, looking to, I suspect, come up with alternative solutions, which those are happening quickly and as we speak. So let's just unpack a little bit of all of that. So let's start with why is it stated publicly that either the U.S. Is looking to ban the use of TikTok, and nations, states around the world have also jumped into that. So speculation, Kaylin, is that because it's Chinese owned from a Chinese national company, that there's, shall we say, all kinds of risks, data scraping, propaganda, disinformation, intentionally shared to sway TikTok users, and so on and so forth. Did I hit all of them correctly? Is there anything else?
Yeah, I guess so. You had said that there's other countries around the world that have banned TikTok. What
Yes.
countries?
Let me look at my notes here. There are quite a few. India has banned it since 2020, along with other Chinese apps, citing data security and privacy concerns. Afghanistan has banned it in 2022, claiming it was misleading the younger generation. So that's that disinformation, threat. Nepal has banned it since November 2023. Um, Uzbekistan had banned it in 2021 for non-compliance with personal data protection laws. The EU has banned TikTok on devices registered with European institutions. And then last but not least, there's partial bans in the UK, Australia, Canada, and several European nations. So it's not just a US concern, which that sheds a whole different perspective on things, I believe. But to your point, if we're going to focus on one application, because because it's from China, or is it because of the real threat or perceived threat, I guess, on personal information, disinformation, and so on and so forth? So I guess there's the first thing, right?
Yeah, I think I understand the government employees not having them on their devices. Like that's completely understandable. But to the extent of not allowing consumers to use it is not like that to me, and multiple other like even the ACLU say that it's kind of an infringement upon First Amendment rights.
of
Um,
of not allowing it.
yeah.
Yeah. But I guess that comes down to the really big question: at what point, and this is not the first or first time this question has come about, right? There's been many instances in our history, but the question is: at what point do we expect and want and need our governments to step in and protect us from ourselves? That, like, we're not knowing any better, so they need to come in and put these bans in place. And again, keep in mind, it's not just US. So is it the government's responsibility? I mean, I could go either way. I mean, to some extent, I think kind of is.
Well, some of those countries that you did list off are right-leaning, kind of borderline dictatorships. Iran, India.
Well, like I
So,
said,
or they have culturally, traditionally been more
conservative.
um, conservative, yes, about what their citizens can digest as far as information. Um,
But
so I think it's also a cultural
without
thing
right.
from an American perspective. Like, I don't want the government telling me what I can and cannot do.
Really?
So,
Do you
yeah,
wear a seatbelt?
by law I have to. So yeah,
Hello? And you're okay with the government telling you to wear a seatbelt?
well, no, if I wanted to, I wouldn't. But
I know, but
that's not like that's me deciding for myself to obey the law. And when I was in New Hampshire, when I first got my license, I was like, I don't have to do that, so I'm not going to do that. They've since changed the law, I think, in New Hampshire that if you're under 18, you have to wear it. Is that maybe what it was? I think once I turned 18, I
it's
was like,
also
I'm
not
gonna take my life in my own hands.
it's also
Uh,
not something they can primarily pull you over for. It has to be something else, and then
yeah,
but there's lots of instances. I know I'm tongue in cheek playing, if I could speak, playing devil's advocate here, but the question primarily and foundationally to me is, where is the line and what is the threshold in which the government we expect to protect ourselves? It's kind of like, as well, like McDonald's and the hot coffee. Do you really have to put in on the disclaimer on the cup, this may burn you? I mean,
yeah,
to what extent? Because if we didn't, if something bad happened through some huge mass media social disinformation campaign came along and we all jumped off a bridge, somebody would survive and blame the government for not protecting us
of
from
course.
foreign nationals.
Of course.
So let's get back to your point, though. I think you were making is why just why just TikTok and their parent company ByteDance?
I think I would have less of a problem with this whole situation if it was technology in general and also included Google, Meta, Instagram, Snapchat. Like, why does it take, it's like, okay, so the federal government doesn't care that Google knows where I am all the time to like, to the exact feet.
Or
They
Apple?
don't care about that. Yeah, like, why now? In that same vein, it makes me wonder if it's a xenophobia kind of thing too. Because, like, okay, it's fine for American companies to do it, but it's not fine if it's a other international company. Like, what? So I think it kind of also defeats the purpose of the ban. Like,
Right,
why? If we're gonna do it right, like all the way, do it right.
right. Not stop singling out just one threat when the threat is here in the United States. It's global, right? It's global. It's not just, to your point, it's not just China. It shouldn't be. Maybe that's the point, right? It shouldn't be based on
Yeah.
national origin
Security.
or national origin, whether that threat comes from China, whether it comes from France, or whether it comes here in our own backyard with, the
Yep.
American companies of Google, Apple, Meta, fill in the blank. So what's
Yeah.
the difference?
Yeah. Like, how are you telling me that, like, Facebook, Reddit, like, they're not creating disinformation? Like, there's not disinformation on there that can be regulated? Like, I don't know.
Um,
I am a little disturbed by the spirit of it, being that it's a single country that they're trying to, pin it on. But
um,
at the same, like, I wish they would just expand it.
so maybe I guess my I take issue with the fact that they're, again, they're looking at a symptom and not the problem. And the
Yes.
problem is disinformation, scraping of I'm sorry, of your personal information and so on and so forth. And they're pinning it on a national of origin,
Yeah.
So to your point, I'm concerned, again, that threat comes regardless of origin. And if you're going to go to the extent in which you're going to try and mitigate it and protect us, citizens from harm, then maybe take it all on. But the thing is let's face it, because now in its purest sense, that's what it is. But now let's talk reality and politics, and it's all political. Here in the
Yeah.
States, we would feel good about, protecting us from, communist China.
Yeah.
Whether it's right or wrong perception,
Yeah.
it's just that, it's perception,
Yeah.
right?
And that's what, like, using like a national security threat, and I'm using quotations here, as a reason is not good enough for me personally. Like, I think there's more problematic issues with Facebook, Google, all
And
of the other big companies, Apple, like you said, um, and not including them in this.
well, I
Like you
guess
said it perfectly. It's they're treating a symptom and not holistically.
the cause. So I guess one other thing that also irritates me and concerns me is that they're selectively choosing this threat, because it is a threat. I mean,
Yeah.
disinformation and
Yeah.
scraping of data. Yes, it happens with TikTok, but it happens at Facebook and Meta, and Apple, and some protect more than others. We'll just keep it within our own realm. Apple, and others are more sharing. But I think what really the issue is that we're skirting around the ability to be influenced by social media, and whether that social media is Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram. Pick one. That we as humans and our behavior are so manipulated by the disinformation and misinformation that's what is terrifying, to the extent where, let's face it, I mean, there have been scientific studies that humans are addicted to social media, right? And
Yeah.
you heard when there were threats of putting a TikTok ban, people were losing their minds.
Yes, there was one guy that actually he was accused of setting a congressman's office on fire over this.
Because that's normal.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole nother topic with mental health issues and everything else that's going on. But that's exacerbated. I actually did a paper on the how social media has increased the polarization of society for one of my classes, my ethics and technology class. It's just exacerbating all of the terrible things in the world because engagement means money for them. And what creates more engagement other than anger?
Emotions,
Hmm.
whether it's a
Well,
cute little puppy dog or whether it's getting upset.
anger. Anger's more, though.
It's,
If I see something on my timeline that makes me so mad that I want to say something, of course I'm going to say something,
I scroll
right?
on.
I know, I try to.
See,
Try.
you're manipulated.
But I know that, which is why I try not to. I stopped fighting with people on Facebook.
Next is behind the wheel when you're alone in your car and you're
Yeah. Yes.
whole different topic. Sorry, there was another squirrel in the room. I couldn't resist. Yeah, I think it's just too bad, right? That if this is such a terrible risk to our American culture,
Values. Yeah.
whatever, why don't they put more like PSAs out there advising to the dangers of social media? If you really want to fix the problem, don't just put a ban on TikTok or any other one and then, tariffs and all the other stuff you want to throw it. Why not also look at it from a holistic solution perspective? And again, let's go to the grassroots, to where the problems are with social media, the users. Put in some PSAs like, don't believe everything you hear. And I remember that commercial from was it Google? You
Geico?
know where I'm going with, right? That guy's the girl is being picked up by her online date she met online.
Yes.
He's from France. Bonjour. It's going to be true if it's on the internet. I mean, silly little things like that. I mean, look at the LinkedIn post that I put on about, the smishing text that I got in regards to Apple. You have to use humor. And I mean, why not have PSAs for that? People need help, Kaylin.
Yeah. 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 Well, we did our Internet is Scary podcast, and that's a great place to start for learning about all these different types of personas that you're going to encounter online. Um,
Good
I
point.
think, I think, I think I might have decided that I'm just fully against it at this point.
The ban,
Yeah,
for the reasons being.
that it's not addressing the source and it's not comprehensive or holistic.
All right, so let's take that one for a moment and then we'll move on to the other topic because we have another one's related but not. So, do you, just because it's not holistic and effective and really what the threat is, does that mean forget it, we shouldn't do anything at all? I mean, I'm going to play devil's advocate, right?
Mm.
It's a start. And hopefully now, if TikTok was banned or majority owned of the company was to shift to the States, then is that the open door? Is that a stepping stone for us to be able to start leveraging those actions and then pushing more for the ability to get increased user awareness as to the dangers of social media and what really can happen with your information and disinformation? Or do we just walk away and say, nope, none of it? It's an all or nothing.
I think the first step is like, no. I think they're going about it the entirely wrong way. Sorry. Nope, not good enough. I think it's arrogant and ridiculous that the United States can think that they can take a private company that's an internationally owned private company and force them to sell to American shareholders or owners. Sorry, not shareholders. Um, I no, I don't think so.
So
No.
why is the U.S. different from India, Pakistan, and all those other countries I mentioned that have already banned it? How are we different?
Are they asking or telling these guys that they need to divest?
No, they're telling them you just can't come here.
I feel
So what is better?
from those countries for
No, what
see
is better? The U.S. solution to ban it and or negotiate and say, in order for you to operate here or to have users here in the States, you need to shift your business model, or should we just ban it? Is it, again, I fear that it's not an easy solution,
no.
or problem, and therefore it's not an easy solution.
Yes. And I think this whole maybe the whole ban or potential ban is a great starting point for talking as a society,
Yes.
but I don't think that it's the correct way to go about it. I think it's a great way to get engagement from citizens to voice their opinions and talk to their senators and determine like, hey, I want this comprehensive, not just about TikTok or whatever. Yeah, I still don't think
I
they
see
should be
it.
doing it at all.
I see it as a good stepping stone. I don't know, and nor do I have any influence of which way
Right.
it's going to go. But here nor there, just the fact that there is this potential, I think we as technologists that understand the dangers, the risks, and ramifications,
Mhm.
that we owe it to our friends, loved ones, and our social circles to begin that conversation, to
Yeah.
make people aware of the potential threat, that in fact there is a threat to your personal identity and manipulation through these mediums, and that we
Mhm.
really need to start those conversations.
Yes. And I think that's initially why I was like, I don't know how I feel about this because that's what I want. I want people to understand like our perspective of how these algorithms can completely change your mind view on stuff. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, I think it's a start as far as establishing a dialogue, but I still don't think that the bill should be passed. Or it's already passed, but I don't think it should be
um,
enforced yet.
time will tell. I
Yeah.
know just the fact that this is a potential that a lot of the technology giants here, those at Google, those at Meta, those at X, and those other places, they all have the ear of the new president. I don't know if that's good or bad, but again, our
Whole nother debate.
conversation is the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So let's switch gears. So another thing that came out in the past couple of weeks is
Mm.
World Economic Forum and their global risk report, because that is something that's on the top of everybody's reading list, I'm sure. And I was kind of like waiting for the new, National Geographics to come out, right?
No, the
Everybody's just,
Oscars list.
yeah, exactly, right? Those of us who are in the risk business, you kidding me? Couldn't wait. But all kidding aside, I almost missed this. And it's a pretty significant item.
Yeah.
And the item I'm talking about is that the World Economic Forum released again its Global Risk Report for 2024, and it lists all kinds of risks. And within the top five, at number four, is technology. And that's scary. It's like we're right up there with like natural disasters and, other really scary things. So technology made that
Yeah.
list. What's your impressions on that?
Off the bat, of course, with me being like an ethics and privacy nerd about misinformation and disinformation, I'm not surprised.
Mm,
I am actually excited that it's people out there recognizing kind of the cons and the repercussions of information, disinformation, and misinformation online, and
right,
how that's coming out in real life.
right.
How that's coming out of our screens and into our living rooms.
So, among that topic of technology risks, I'll read off some of the big ones, right, that fall. So these are subtopics within that make it to be number four. And the all big countdown of global risks concerns. No kidding aside, this is pretty serious stuff. First is the misinformation and disinformation, something that you, Kaylin, you and I are rather passionate about, and we'll continue to talk about. Job displacement, the fear that there will be mass job layoffs due to AI. Don't know how true this is going to be. I think it's going to be a shift. We've heard this forever and a day. So we'll see. One thing that does kind of concerns and raises an eyebrow, and that's the weaponization of AI, the
Mm,
potential for military applications to incorporate AI into their use and to come up with new forms of combat and security threats. So that's rather terrifying. Cybersecurity threats, of course, with AI. And I'll say for a moment here, yes, AI does introduce a lot of cybersecurity threats. Depends on what you're talking about, right? Because
mhm.
ultimately it really comes down to the data. So AI use can be a little dangerous, depends on where the data is, what you're getting the data from, but more from a threat and detect, type of perspective. There's the ability to potentially poison that. AI bias, right? We, all know about that between
Yep.
bias and hallucinations. The digital divide and the concentration of technology power. So this is really interesting as well, right? When you think about a world economic situation, where are the strong pulses or the
Yeah.
heartbeats of AI development?
In the
And
U.S.
how is that going to put other countries at a disadvantage? But
Yep.
it's not just the US. I mean, I know, a lot of my colleagues on the Cloud Security Alliance AI working groups, there's a lot of talent in Europe. But what about those other areas of the world and that are not necessarily first world countries? How are they going to, survive in this world of AI, right? So there it is. Those are all the things that are making technology number four in the list. So I mean,
Wow.
you already spoke about your concerns of the misinformation and disinformation, and that goes without saying. But what are your thoughts on some of these other ones?
Um, And that there was a really interesting quote, and we'll put the link to the report when we publish and post. That it is 71% of cybersecurity leaders say small organizations have already reached a tipping point where they can no longer adequately secure themselves against the growing complexity of cyber risks. That's a huge number.
71.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. That falls into the technological risks. Um,
Well,
I'm not surprised by it, but it is a scary number.
it's absolutely terrifying, and it in and of itself is an emergency.
Yeah.
It's a call to action. And so one would have to stop again and unpack that one. Why is that?
Yeah.
Right? Um,
I have theories.
well, let's hear them.
People are understaffed,
But why?
overworked.
Why?
Why are they understaffed?
And overworked.
Economic. And especially where this says that it's a small organization, so they might not have the budget to, employ a security team, risk team, people that, specialize in identifying this.
But to me, it's interesting because I had a conversation with one of the clients this morning, and it really comes down to today's like the topic of the day is investments, right? So yeah, it's terrible. It's a horrible statistic. 71% of small businesses are at the tipping point for being able to protect their company. So what that tells me is that those that are in charge of the strategy are not aligned with the business. They're not having the business understand the need and the appropriate amount of investment to protect their organization. So they're not putting it in business terms. They're just saying, "Oh, well, I need another technology application, blah blah blah," and that's what the businesses are hearing. Blah 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 blah. You want more? Well,
Yeah.
we need to focus on revenue generation or reinvestment back into the company. They're not having that conversation to, gee, if we invest in this amount of resources, right?
Mm.
Resources are time, materials and staff or technology and staff, then we'll be able to increase your capability by X-fold. And therefore you would be able to, focus more on revenue generation. So it really shows me that there's misalignment and miscommunication in regards to the technology strategy and the business strategy. And I
Yeah.
remember years ago, when I was asked to come up with the security budget, it's like, okay, well, you can do whatever you want. You're going to get like 9% of the IT budget. What do you mean 9% of the IT budget? So you're telling me that the risk, technology risk of the organization is only 9% of IT use?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the conversation was.
Mhm. Yeah. Yep. Did they do BIA by any chance?
No.
Yeah.
How many
Of course not.
organizations have?
I have.
I have. Right. To ensure business alignment. And then it's when you do those exercises of BIAs and analysis, risk threat analysis, it's like, oh, dang,
Yeah.
maybe we should invest a little bit more. Or the good old, let's wait for the pen test, the annual pen test, but then it becomes, you kind of get disheartened and you get jaded. It's like, yeah, here it comes again. Here comes IT and the IT security folks. Blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. We got 6 criticals, 4 mediums and 14 highs. What's that mean? What's
That's
that really
right.
mean to my bottom line? I'm still going to be selling widgets tomorrow,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Um, Another, to go back to the World Economic Forum report, there were a couple of really interesting graphs in there that I took note of. There is figure 1.2, which is a current global risks by age group, and it breaks down what each age group has identified as risks, like globally, which is really interesting to see how and where what falls on the list for different age groups.
Mhm.
They have an economic downturn highlighted, which in the first group, which is the youngest, 30 or younger, is third, but by the time you get to 70, it's not even on there. Or the 60 to 69, it is 11th, which speaks to my, my interest in sociology. Um, but yeah, I really like this report, how they break down all of this different stuff. It's not just focused on technological risks either.
Right.
It's societal, economic,
Yep.
environmental, geopolitical, etc.
Well,
Um,
that's what shocked me because I didn't expect technology to be listed as a
yeah,
risk in the global economic forum. Think about that.
yeah.
I mean, really, let that settle. That's like, holy moly.
I wonder if it's. Do you think that it's up there because of all of the talk and everything with AI, or do you think it's actually
Yes.
on people's minds?
Well, I think AI, well, you look at the list of the technological risks,
Mm,
and certainly AI is in the majority of them. However, um, just as much, in my opinion, is the misinformation, disinformation.
yeah,
And as you and I talked before, there is a huge difference between those two, right?
yeah,
Disinformation is purposely deceiving somebody or swaying somebody, whereas misinformation is mistakenly
yeah.
guiding somebody in the wrong direction. So I think it's, but that, I mean, those two tied together is again social media. Propaganda. It's media. Period. Whether it's social media, publications, whatever it is, and it's just kind of a shame that through you want to talk about sociology through the cultural changes over the past 40, 50 years from the 60s, right, that it's become more acceptable to be deceptive or the old thought that, well, I'm not lying if I don't share something with you, right? So it's like the our social acceptance of disinformation and misinformation has come to a head, and it's really sad that when you think back to the history of media, right, publications, that we're now at a spot where before it was honorable to say the facts, stick to the facts, and now it's not the case.
Hmm. When you say that, what are you meaning exactly? Like, what kind of example could you give?
Um, well, I'm just thinking about the book that both of us are reading from Win Schwartz in the Meta War, the art and science of meta war. And his example of like back in the day, it was very factual reporting of world situations and whatnot. And then it came the what's his name there, that did War of the Wars, War of the Worlds, if I could say it, and how that blew everybody's mind because nobody ever did that before, reported something to be true when it wasn't. And now, I mean, I don't care what side of the political fence you're on or not or whatever, but it's gotten to the point where I personally, I don't believe any media stories. And whether it's from social media or it's from the world reporting media, I'm just so done with all of it, and it's kind of sad that the
Well,
extreme.
yeah, you shouldn't get to that point because that's letting disinformation, misinformation get to you. It's all about, being able to verify your source. What A good question I like to ask when I'm reading something is like, who benefits
The
from
motive.
this information?
I do that with cyber. What's the
Hmm.
motive? Why would they do that?
Yes,
But
that's
everybody
one of the
has
key questions.
everybody has a motive. Everybody has a hidden agenda. They do. It's human nature.
I don't know.
Kind of
I
sad,
don't.
Anna.
Uh,
But
I don't know. I don't know. That's kind of disturbing in a way.
well, it's social acceptance of the fact that you're able to do that. We're back in the 40s, 50s, and pre 60s. It was you were publicly shamed, you were ridiculed. It was not socially accepted to be dishonest or to have disinformation. It
Mm,
was bad, and now, I mean, it's a fact of life. So
yeah.
sorry that I'm so pessimistic, but
Yeah. I don't know. Because you keep talking about media and like the way back in the 50s and 60s and wherever, like they only had access to like three news channels,
right,
right? Nowadays, you can get new
every
news in quotation marks um, from everywhere. So you like people have to be able to think critically about their information that they're getting
can't.
from. I know, I
That's the
know.
problem. People can't think critically on their own. I
Yep.
guess maybe that's why I'm sad, and that's why it's like, I just don't want to, I just don't want to deal with it anymore. I mean, think about, last topic we'll hit on and then we'll sign off. But, the whole thing recently with good old Facebook doing away with fact checking. I mean, that threw so many people for a loop.
I think that's a whole nother discussion in itself because that's like to me. I think the social media companies like X and Facebook need to be regulated like newspapers, journalists, where they have
Yes.
to. Like for me, it's ethically wrong and morally wrong for them to allow disinformation and misinformation to permeate everybody's algorithm. Like I think they have a moral obligation to fix that. But they want to make money. It's capitalism and money.
Right.
Yep.
Unfortunately. Versus honor and truth
Societal good.
and, yeah, honesty. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. We
Well,
could go into a whole nother debate on that. Maybe that will be another episode at some point.
I'm depressed as it is. I need to move
Oh
on.
my god.
I think we've come full circle here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For sure. Um, yeah, I feel like I have more questions than answers about the World Economic Forum report, but
Yes.
that's a whole nother, cerebral philosophical, psychological debate that we could spend 3 hours on.
Right. Exactly. So I hope that our listeners have enjoyed this conversation. And our aim is always to get you thinking and get you talking and having conversations about these important topics that affect all of us. So, love to hear your thoughts. Put it in the comments below. As Kayla mentioned, we'll share that World Economic Forum's Global Risk Report with you. Take a peek through. Really interesting that I don't know if to be happy, proud, or ashamed that technology has made the top five. And yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And I mean, TikTok and all social media, we'll see what plays out.
Mm-hmm.
Any closing thoughts, Kaylin?
Oh, no, no. Just share your thoughts with us. I'd be interested in hearing some other people.
All right. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and close out. And until next time, stay secure, stay refined.
And don't be afraid to get a little bit feral.